Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I am speaking with Cody Steinmann of Code 7. He has just released a fantastic record called 7, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. Cody, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It is a nice Sunday afternoon in my area, and I can't think of a better thing to be doing than to talk about this amazing music. Where in
Yeah.
the world are you at the moment?
So I'm in Minneapolis. That's where I live. I'm basically like right around downtown. Or for those of you who are more familiar with Minneapolis, I'm in the kind of uptown Whittier neighborhood area.
Cool,
Uh,
man.
yeah, it's a really nice spot.
Doing your thing, making
Yeah.
music. You've got this record out called 7, and I'll
hmm
be the first. I'll be the first to say today, maybe that it completely took me by surprise. I didn't know what to expect, but it seriously blew me away in all aspects. It's one of the more
Thanks.
complex records that I've heard this year so far, and it totally aligns with my personal preferences, which makes this all the better. Would you mind breaking down the message of it? Obviously, it's a very instrumental forward record, but I want to know if there's anything like that it represents for you as a person.
Oh yeah. It's kind of man. Oh man, it's a it
You're just like
represents.
ready to unload.
Oh man, it's a lot,
Yeah.
man.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to put in a nutshell. So
Sure.
that's the hard thing. It represents a lot, man. For me, that record really just kind of like a chronicle of my youth. It's like a musical chronicle, of basically ages 0 through like what I don't know, like 22, 23, 20, something like that for me.
Sure.
You know, it was it was a record. I'm a quote unquote jazz. I put jazz in quotes because I really trying to get away from using that word. The only reason I even continue to use it is just simply because a lot of people don't. Uh, a lot of people don't know what the heck you're talking about.
It's true. Like
Unless,
98% of people who listen to music just want music to make them feel good rather than care
yeah.
what it is. So I get
Well,
it.
yeah. I mean, so like really, I'm a white dude who plays Black American music. I'm very very involved in the whole canon of Black American music. I have such a great respect for it, and it really was. And when I talk about Black American music, like jazz, what
Yeah.
people consider jazz, is part of that. Hip hop,
Right.
gospel, R&B, rock. As far as I'm considered, as far as I'm concerned, like death metal and metal are also Black American music because all
Right.
that stuff has its roots in Black American traditions. There's definitely that as aspect of it. So kind of back to bring it back to the original question, like what it represents for me is it's through the medium of my own experiences and just kind of being involved in a lot of different genres of music and having to operate in those kind of different places as both a musician and also just as a person. I just kind of took all those influences and I used them to speak of kind of just my troubled youth, and I used that as the medium to kind of just chronicle the story of how I grew up,
Sure.
having just like a really um, just being an underprivileged youth in Milwaukee County. And I grew up in an area of Milwaukee County called West Dallas, and I was pretty close to the South Side hood, but then I was also like, go a few miles the other way and you're on like a bunch of really rich white people.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of always in this like in between world where like, I was just really around a melting pot of people, and had a lot of really crazy experiences, because of all that. A lot of them not good at all, and a lot of them very very good, and very informative. And Yeah, so that's kind of just where kind of the record comes from.
Oh, that really
Obviously,
helps.
yeah, obviously if you listen to it, there's a lot of touching on my on drug addiction and
Mhm.
you know things like that. There's a little bit of references of gang violence and some of that, and just some of the other just darker aspects of growing up in a rough neighborhood and being
Yeah, man.
around a lot of that sort of stuff. So
I get it. It all comes through very clearly. And like I said, I think for the person who's going to listen for the first time, I think like most music listeners, they're going to be listening to like the instrumentation. You know what I mean? There's so few people nowadays that focus their focus on lyricism, but I would recommend obviously doing that because it clearly means something to you.
mhm.
I also want to talk about the production here because it is killer. You are kind of the puppeteer, the puppet master, putting this whole thing together. It sounds incredible, and I would recommend everyone listen on a nice pair of headphones to really like pick up on the subtleties. But it's for the most part it's you, but you've also had some helpful musicians to kind of tie up the loose ends.
Yes.
I'd love for you to give a shout out to them, kind of give
Yeah.
just like background on how this all came together.
So kind of along with like the instrumentation and kind of like the messaging and everything like that, I'm, as I was saying, I'm a quote unquote jazz musician or whatever, if that's easier than saying Black American music artist or whatever as a white dude, I guess. but
Right.
So typically the a lot of music in the jazz tradition has a lot of improvisation. So a lot of the core of this album, just the kind of the thing that's like throughout every single track, one of the main things that's happening is that there's a jazz trio. There's constantly either a guitar trio or me on piano. So at all times there's live drum, live bass, live guitar. So there were certain tracks on there production wise where we did just sample a loop of us playing, but all the loops were taken live in the studio. Okay. So we played all that. I mean, I had, I handwrite all my charts. If you go on my Patreon page, you can actually posted a couple of them there. Awesome. I don't use software just because I don't know, man. I think there's just something special about handwriting your stuff, especially when you can do it. So yeah, I had handwritten charts out. I also had raps that I had written and spoken word parts that I had wanted to put on there. And obviously the concept was the 7 deadly sins. If that didn't come through with the name 7 and the names of the songs, that's what it is.
I love the concept record style.
Yeah.
Like you had a vision and you completed it.
Yeah. So the idea was to have again, it's telling the story, of how I interacted these 7 deadly sins throughout my youth, how that stuff impacted me, whatever, and the kind of representative of the core of like, hey, I'm the one who experienced all of this wild stuff, and somehow still here to tell the tale is the fact that there's this core trio happening throughout the whole thing. Totally. Then on top of that, per track, I definitely had stuff where it was a little bit more instead of like live and like having this like kind of like looser drums and everything, like the response of a live band. I did have some stuff where we overdubbed it later, so it had that more produced sound, specifically the raps. All the rapping was not done live with the group. That was all done mostly the second day in the studio. We recorded everything other than the horn and cello and the string stuff in 2 days. I had 2 days at the studio, and honestly, to tell the truth, we also did it all. We didn't even have a full band rehearsal. We had one full band rehearsal the day before I went in the studio. So the rappers had just met the band and just figure it all out.
Jeez, man.
That's Israel.
Yeah.
Israel as an Israel. Not the one that's on any of the platforms right now, because I'm also going to give Israel a little crap right now because he's my friend. Bro, get on your game, man. Freaking start. You know, you see, start like whatever.
Of course.
Distro kid, whatever. There's so many ways. Get on your game,
So easy.
Get on your game, Israel. Not the Israel that's already out there. You're doing a good job. You're already on your game. I'm giving my Israel crap.
Yeah, I figured so.
But then Ben Sab Grimm as well, you know, and I give them a huge shout out, man, because they came in, they made that stuff happen in a cinch. And then Graydon Peterson on bass, who's a world-class bass player, and Miguel Hurtado on drums were really just like the core of this project. Miguel Hurtado is a world-class drummer. All these cats are from the Twin Cities. I'm the only one from Milwaukee originally.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like I presented the idea to them that I wanted to make this album with all these feelings I had pent up and like just didn't know how to express. Yeah, they all, you know, came together. Luckily, you know, I spent a lot of time working on it, and I mean, I'd spent a lot of time working on it before I presented it to them.
Right. I didn't think it was just 2 days, like, all right, let's get in there and freestyle and we'll figure it out. No, there's obviously a lot that goes in beforehand.
Yeah. So there was definitely a lot of me, like, you know, working out, like, you know, what exact instrumentations I wanted per tune. Like I wanted Rhodes and piano, or I wanted a mix of Rhodes and piano. What I wanted to have here, like, you know, which parts, like how much of it I wanted to record all the way through, or like which tracks we wanted to record the band all the way through. And then also which tracks I was like, all right, we'll just record this section and sample it, and then record this section and sample it and piece it together.
Sure.
And I didn't actually even write all that down. I'm kind of like, you know, I know people say to write stuff down, but I'm kind of like a super obsessive thinker. So I just like, I think a lot. So I just like I feel like kind of learned to have like this little like filing system in my own head when it comes to just like my own compositions and things I want. And if I really think I'm going to forget it, then I'll write it down. But most of the time I remember. So
makes sense.
I had all that laid out in my head before I had set foot in the studio. So yeah, it was smooth, man. And I mean, on some real insider shit about. I mean, can I cuss? Can I cuss?
Oh yeah, you can. There's no
okay. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Didn't want to look too bad, man.
No, you're good.
Yeah. No. Man, going into doing that record, man, I was not in a good place at all. I was really not. I had just kind of realized, or started to really realize, that I suffer with like some pretty serious PTSD, just from a lot of this stuff that this album is a musical chronicle of. And it really took me moving to a place that wasn't Milwaukee, like getting out of my environment and really being out of the environment for a sustained period of time, to be able to do that kind of level of introspection, and see those sort of things. And I had probably had PTSD since I was a child, and then went untreated for a very, very long time. And on top of all the other stuff, it was just like, you know, one of those kind of snowballing kind of things. And then after years and years of time of like, you know, just having, you know, compounding experiences and everything, I don't know, what was it? Yeah, it was like 3 weeks before I went and recorded that record, I had a psychotic break, and I had to be hospitalized for about a week. And when I got out of the hospital, I had 3 weeks, and then I had the studio session booked, and I had to go record that record. So I came out of the studio, and, you know, to tell you the honest to God truth, like I was completely gone. Like a lot of my close friends at that point were worried if I was ever gonna like come back, if I was ever gonna be like Cody again or anything. And I was still like hallucinating somewhat, like having all sorts of just like, you know, just like auditory and some visual hallucination still, and just a lot of delusions. But I was just like focusing on like, the fact that I wanted to make sure that I killed this record, and somehow that kind of held everything together
Right.
in some way. And then through the process, and obviously like, coming down from, a psychotic break takes a little bit of time for you to completely like come back. And yeah, but definitely in the studio, I was those 2 days, I was still kind of somewhat, well, still a little bit loopy. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Was you, I mean, I know it's a lot more difficult and complicated than this. Did you feel any amount of relief from like getting in there and focusing on this record, like being in the studio and getting it done and like, connecting all the dots?
Oh yeah, I did. I mean, really, I mean, I don't know, like I said, I had never, I had to leave Milwaukee to do a certain level of introspection,
Sure.
on myself when it came to PTSD and like music and everything.
Yeah.
And kind of, and how this relates to music is like, I think like really the only reason I was able to freaking hold it together a lot of the time I was in Milwaukee was because of music. It was because of how involved in just trying to make this dream of mine happen.
Sure.
And it was therapy in and of itself to me. And the hard part though was like, and I say this because like it wasn't like I was just in Milwaukee doing no introspections, like, just like, oh, I'm just like, compounding horrible experiences and whatever. Like I was doing lots of work on myself to like, grow and everything, and with the resources that I had in a place like
Right.
that. But when I moved here and I started, having different kind of experiences and starting to see all that, I started to see how I related just to people and music and the stuff a little bit differently than
Yeah.
just the average listener. So to kind of bring it back to the question, I know
Sure.
I'm kind of trailing off because this
Honestly,
has to do with it.
I just want to interject real quick. I have like a list of questions that I was planning on asking you, but this is way better because it's real and honest
Oh,
and original, and it like totally breaks the mold of what I usually do. So don't let me hold you back, man. Please,
okay,
like
cool.
this
Yeah,
is
I'm
this
I'm
is what
sorry.
I want to know. Like I don't need to
Yeah,
know your influences. I have a pretty good idea of who they are. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, you got
So
my bio, man. You can read my
yeah,
bio.
that's what I'm saying. Like
I'm sure at this point, most people probably coming to listen to this, I would hope, have a decent idea of what music I do to
right.
some extent. Um,
Yeah,
so
please.
so basically, what ended up happening, in the process of making that record, was I was like, oh my god! And after I was done, I felt like this like weight lifted off my shoulders. Like, holy crap! Like this is like if anything, like kind of like uh, a journal
Sure.
of like what these views are. And I've found myself, while in therapy now and everything, like reaching back to that record sometimes just to kind of like remind me of maybe some of the things I haven't, completely worked out yet.
Yeah.
Or things I need to reflect on still. But yeah, the process of that was definitely a big weight lifted off my shoulders in a certain way. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. Fantastic answer. Now, yeah, obviously these songs mean so much to you,
Hmm.
and they're some of the most personal things that I've ever heard. Like, would you feel comfortable playing these in front of people? Like, are you touring? Are you playing
Oh yeah,
shows?
I mean, so
Like,
the hard part
such an
with this
emotion
group,
behind them. Like, you
I
know
know,
what I'm saying?
I don't have a problem playing this in front of people, and actually, I do. So, as a little plug to like what the whole concept of this actually
Yeah, please.
is so Code 7, was kind of, my introduction to myself is like, a producer, and like,
Sure.
how like my style of production is going to, you know, include both, everything you can do on Fruity Loops and all your super produced stuff, but then also a lot of live instrumentation.
Sure.
So I want to push the whole code, continue to push like, that side of myself.
Good.
And like, I do play on, at least as a guitar player, quite a bit of rappers stuff, at least locally and whatnot. but like the larger concept is this to be a is to continue to push this as a group. The hard part with it is that it's a lot of people,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of components. It's not because there is the aspect of stuff that I want sampled and like or like certain loops that I want not necessarily played by the live band, or I want to have the live band play against. I gotta make sure that I have someone, because I could do all that myself. Like I could sit here and play the piano parts and play the guitar parts and do my rapping or spoken word parts at the same time, but I don't. I just don't want to do that.
It's
I would
also
rather
fun
just
to collaborate. Like it's
yeah,
fun
yeah,
to do things alone and not be so insular all the time.
yeah. And for this project, I would rather just have my responsibilities just be playing guitar when it's time for me to play guitar. And on the few tracks where I do spoken word or I rap, have that be my responsibility too. It's just kind of hard to get the funding needed, for the caliber of musicians that I work with to get a project like this to happen.
Well, there's no lack of talent presented, so I don't know if that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I maybe just got to do a little more searching.
I understand.
And the big thing for me with this project is like if I am able to turn into a group, I would like to do a tour of alternative schools. I would really like to target, as someone who graduated from an alternative school. I would really love to tour alternative schools and show other troubled youth that music is a real powerful outlet for doing this, and that like regardless of what teachers and whatever and other people say, you can actually make a living doing this. And if at the very least, if you put in a lot of work and you don't make a living doing this, you can make a chunk of change too. Not that that's what this is about, but like, it can be a lot of different things to you if you truly, decide to invest your time in it and give it the, love that it needs. Like if you love music, you really do it, it's gonna love you back.
I agree.
And that's what I would really like to do with it. And also in the future, I plan to, there will be a Code 7 follow-up. There will be a 7 volume 2.
Nice.
I haven't began writing for it yet, but it's
take your time, man.
It's in there. I got another group right now I'm currently pushing, which is my trio, which is my Cody Steinmann Trio stuff, which is my more straight ahead jazz stuff. But with this group, I want to do a follow-up album, where it's again another 7-track album, but instead of it being the 7 deadly sins, it'll be the 7 virtues. So nice. 7 volume 2.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Cody, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to hear the background. Like I said, everything in the middle, that it just would have been pointless compared to what you just opened up and said. There was really one last thing that I want to know before we finish up here, and it's
what's up?
For the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that's going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them before they dive in?
Man, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for listening. I love you. You're loved. Hopefully, I hope, just by hearing this project, that it, will serve as an inspiration to them in the ways that, the works of John Coltrane and Wayne Shorter and, I mean, Rage Against the Machine and other groups have served as a huge inspiration to me. So, yeah.
Lovely answer, man. Let me plug your music for you one more time. This is Cody Steinmann, but the project is called Code 7, and the record is called 7. And we're gonna have links so that you guys can listen and share and follow along and do all that fun stuff. But I am personally invested at this point, and I can't wait to hear Volume 2, but also to check out the rest of your works, man.
Thank you.
I sincerely want to thank you for your time and your openness and honesty.
Thank you much. Awesome. Yes.
You are
Thanks so
very
much.
welcome, man. Have an
Yep.
amazing rest of
Yep.
your Sunday, and I hope to speak soon.
Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.